Hey, welcome back. This is Dino. Our mini lecture for today is on research interviews. It's a two-parter. I'm sure you're looking forward to part two, even though we've just started part one. That's how confident I am. What is a research interview? For those of you who don't know, it is a conversation done between a researcher and an interviewee for gathering information about a research subject. Just so you know a little bit about what that is. Who participates in a research interview? It normally includes two people. I just spoke about them briefly. I'm going to make this a little bit more broad so you know. One is the interviewer, the second is the interviewee. The interviewer coordinates the process of the conversation to make sure that it's done in a proper location, proper medium, proper place, etc. And he or she asks the questions that drive the interview. The interviewee responds to the interviewer's questions and is most likely part of a population or a sample that has some kind of information that the interviewer is interested in. There are multiple formats for a research interview, three main ones: face-to-face. Researchers often do this if they cannot get their interviewee to write a response or they can't phone it in, such as, say, like young children who have problems writing long answers to things if necessary. The elderly or disabled who may not be able to, again, write or use a phone. Alternatively to face-to-face, people still do phone interviews, and finally, something that's been growing over the last several years is doing interviews over the internet. Why would you want to conduct an academic research interview? Two main reasons. You need to collect in-depth information on people's opinions, thoughts, experiences, and feelings, again, from a person who's part of a sample or population that you're interested in. And B, conducting an academic interview is useful when the topic of inquiry relates to issues that require complex questioning and considerable probing. So you may have had some very superficial survey questions, like a little piece of paper where you check off using a Likert scale, like between like strongly agree, indifferent, disagree, strongly disagree. After finding out that that person is someone that you're interested in, you might want to go in further depth with more complex questioning and more probing to get at what their thoughts, experiences, and feelings are. Two main types of interviews. Interviews can be designed differently depending on the needs being addressed and the information being collected. The three main types I'll get into. Structured interviews. That is when an interviewer asks standard and predetermined questions. They're usually arranged in an order and a sequential list, most important to least important. The respondents select answers from a list of options. So the interviewer can give the interviewee a list and they can choose from among those their answers. Depending on if there's any confusion, the interviewer may provide clarification on questions if necessary, and is typically used more in surveys, like filled out surveys as opposed to proper interviews, or what we can normally consider interviews. B, the semi-structured interview. Here the interviewer uses a set of predetermined questions, so they'll have these questions, again, similar to the structured interview. Here the respondents try to answer in their own words as opposed to options that they could pick and check. Some interviewers use a topic guide as a checklist to ensure that respondents provide information on the same topics. This helps to ensure there's some kind of regularity between the different interviewees and how they're responding. The interview can probe areas based on respondents' answers or ask supplementary questions for clarification. So again, say if you ask a more general question, there's something about that answer that's unclear or is interesting to the interviewer, they might dig into deeper and probe to find out more about that specific idea or issue. Semi-structured interviews, finally, are useful when there's a need to collect in-depth information in a systematic manner from a number of respondents or interviewees, such as if you had a group of teachers, again, similar professions, or community leaders, again, who do similar things. Finally, number 3, the unstructured interviews. Here, the interviewer has no specific guidelines, restrictions, predetermined questions, or a list of options. It's very there's obviously preparation involved in it, but it's much more free and easy than the first 2 types. The interviewer asks broad questions to discuss with the respondents in open, informal, and spontaneous talks. From this, you can find out new and interesting things you might not find from the other 2 more structured types of interviews. The interviewer here probes with further questions and or explores inconsistencies to gather more in-depth information on the topic. Because of the lack of structure, additional questions can be added, some could be deleted. If the interviewer finds that potentially that different answers by the interviewee do not match up, they can explore these inconsistencies to get to the quote-unquote truth. Unstructured interviews are finally useful for stories behind respondents' experiences or when there's little information about a topic. Because stories can be so idiosyncratic, the unstructured interview process will let the interviewer get into the topic a bit more in the way that it needs to due to its unique nature. And also, as you can see here, this could be really useful if the interviewer knows nothing or very little about a topic. So there you go. That was Research Interviews Part 1. I look forward to hearing or seeing you in Research Interviews Part 2.